They came back. They came back.
Imagine a world at the edge of oblivion. The planet Karnath was dying. Twin suns scorched its surface, oceans turned to dust, and ash storms swept across what were once green plains. The Karnathi, a proud, silver-skinned people, were fading into history. For decades, they sent distress calls across the galaxy, but no one answered. Karnath was of no value, no precious minerals, no strategic trade routes. In the vast, uncaring cosmos, they were forgotten. Then, one day, something fell from the sky. Not a meteor, but a ship, small, burning, crashing through the clouds like a dying star. From the wreckage, the Karnathi rescued a single human, barely alive. His suit was torn, his helmet cracked. Through the haze of pain, he looked at the strange, tall beings surrounding him and whispered, "Anyone need help?" His name was Captain Elias Ward. Pirates had attacked his cargo ship, and he'd escaped in a damaged pod that plummeted to Karnath. The Karnathi, who had only heard of humans in myths, took him in. Their medics saved him, their children brought him water, and their elders prayed for his recovery. As Elias healed, he saw their dying world, their failing machines, and their broken hope. And he made a choice. He would help them. He was just one man with no weapons and no power. But he worked tirelessly. He repaired their solar collectors, jury-rigged old water purifiers, and taught them simple human engineering. He shared his own rations with their children. He breathed life back into their abandoned projects, and with it, he breathed hope back into their hearts. Slowly, parts of the planet began to live again. The Karnathi learned something new, what it meant to care for a stranger. One night, the High Speaker Thalren asked him, "Human, why? You owe us nothing." Elias smiled. "Because once, someone helped my people when we were weak. We learned that kindness is like gravity. It always pulls back." When a Terran patrol ship finally came to rescue him, the Karnathi were heartbroken. Before he left, Elias pressed a small silver badge with a blue star into Thalren's hand. "If you ever need help," he said, "send this code. Someone will come." 20 years later, the Vorn Dominion arrived. A cruel empire that came not for trade, but for slaves. Their fleets darkened the sky and their armies crushed Karnath's defenses in less than an hour. In the ruins of his capital, the now-old Thalren held the silver badge. It was their last hope. He activated the beacon, sending a single message coded into the stars. "Help us." 3 days passed. The Vorn flagship hovered over the conquered world. Then, the sensors screamed. "Multiple warp signatures detected," the officer shouted. "Hundreds of them." Space itself tore open as thousands of Terran warships burst from hyperspace, all bearing the Blue Star insignia. A deep voice echoed across every channel. "This is Admiral Ward of the Terran Alliance Fleet. You have attacked a world under our protection. Stand down, immediately." The Vorn Admiral sneered. "Under your protection? This isn't even a human world." There was a moment of silence. Then the human admiral's voice returned, cold and final. "No. But once they helped one of us, and humanity does not forget." The darkness of space turned white as the Terran fleet opened fire. One act of kindness, a single moment of compassion, had echoed across the galaxy. It reminds us that humanity remembers those who stand with us, even when the rest of the stars turn away. Thank you so much for watching. If this story moved you, please consider liking this video and subscribing for more content. See you in the next one. The sky of Karnath was a canvas of light and death. Like a sudden, roaring avalanche of metal and fire, the Terran fleet descended. Battleships, cruisers, and carriers, moving in flawless formation, their engines a brilliant blue against the angry orange sky. The very clouds seemed to crackle and split as plasma beams tore through the invading Vorn Dominion fleet. Down below, amidst the ruins of their cities, the people of Karnath watched in stunned silence. They had never witnessed such raw power, never heard a sound like this, the thunder of cannons that shook the mountains to their core, the blinding flash of explosions that painted the horizon a stark, brilliant white. On the steps of the shattered council tower, High Speaker Thalren stood, his old eyes lifted to the heavens. Tears streamed down his weathered gray face as he whispered, his voice trembling with a mix of awe and relief. They came. The humans came. High above the planet on the bridge of the flagship Taz Resolute, Admiral Marcus Ward stood tall. He was the grandson of Captain Elias Ward, a name that echoed through his family's history. Around him, holographic displays flickered, a symphony of controlled chaos, enemy ships breaking apart, Allied vessels moving with deadly precision, the battle unfolding like a living storm. Admiral, enemy reinforcements detected. The comm officer's voice cut through the hum of the bridge. Marcus simply nodded, his calm a stark contrast to the fury outside. Form Delta Line. Push them back toward the gravity well. Target their carriers first. The fleet moved as a single, terrifying organism, a blend of cold, human precision and a burning, righteous fury. Missiles streaked across the black void, carving fiery paths through the Vorn formations. Every explosion was a punctuation mark, every strike a testament to a single promise made long, long ago. On the bridge of the Vorn flagship, Admiral Krex watched in disbelief as his formidable fleet was systematically dismantled. These humans, they fight as if their very souls are on fire, he growled, a sliver of fear in his voice. His second-in-command, trembling, asked, "Orders, sir?" Krex's command was terse. "Retreat, before they burn the stars themselves." But it was far too late. The Terran Fleet unleashed its final, devastating barrage. Thousands of rail slugs and plasma beams converged, shattering the Vorn command ship like glass. And then silence. A profound quiet returned to orbit, where nothing of the Dominion fleet remained but drifting debris and the dying echoes of war. Hours after the celestial battle, the first Terran dropships descended to the surface. Soldiers in gleaming silver armor and medics in crisp white suits spread across the ruined cities, their mission now one of mercy. They brought food, clean water, medicine, and most importantly, they brought hope. Thalrin, still frail, was guided to the central square. There, he met Admiral Ward for the first time. The human officer removed his helmet, revealing a young but resolute face, and offered a crisp salute to the old alien leader. "High Speaker Thalrin, I am Admiral Marcus Ward of the Terran Alliance." Thalrin's voice shook. "Ward, your name, it is familiar." A gentle smile touched Marcus's lips. "It should be. My grandfather, Captain Elias Ward, crashed here 20 years ago. He told us about this world, and about the people who saved him." The old Carnathi's eyes welled with tears. His hands, trembling, reached into his robes and pulled out a small worn silver badge, the very one Elias had given him all those years ago. "He said someone would come," Thalrin whispered, his voice thick with emotion. "And you did." Marcus looked from the badge to the sky, now clearing of smoke, a brilliant blue peeking through. "We came because we never forget those who show us kindness. Humanity remembers its friends." The war was over, but the rebuilding had just begun. In the following weeks, Terran engineers worked side by side with Carnathi architects, their combined efforts restoring power grids and cleansing the toxic air. For the first time in generations, the laughter of Carnathi children echoed under a clear blue sky. At night, Terran soldiers and Carnathi survivors would share stories around campfires, tales of their homes, of the stars, and of the old promise that had brought them all together. When the Carnathi asked why humanity had risked so much for them, the answer was always the same, delivered with a simple smile. "Because your people saved one of ours." Months later, in the center of the newly built capital, a monument was raised. It depicted two figures standing side by side, one human, one Carnathi, both reaching for the stars. At its base, a message was carved in both languages. "To the people who once saved a single man, humanity remembers." During the dedication ceremony, Admiral Ward gave his final speech. "My grandfather believed that one good act could change the stars themselves," he said, his voice strong. "He was right. Because of him, two worlds now stand as one. If darkness ever comes again, remember this day, and know that humanity will answer the call." As the Terran fleet ascended back into the heavens, their engines left trails of blue light, like shooting stars carrying a promise. A young Karnathi looked up and asked Thalrin, "Do you think they will ever come back?" The old leader smiled. "They will, child. Humans always keep their promises." Far above, on the TAS Resolute, Admiral Ward stood by the viewport watching the peaceful world shrink below. He opened his grandfather's old journal and read a line written decades ago. "If ever they call for help, I hope someone answers." Marcus smiled, closed the book, and whispered to the stars, "We answered, grandfather, and we always will." Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this story, please consider liking this video and subscribing for more. We'll see you in the next one. Years passed since the Terran fleet saved Karnath. The planet healed slowly. Forests returned and rivers once more ran clear. Towers that once lay in ruins now glimmered under the twin suns, their metal shining like hope reborn. But something far greater had also grown, a deep and lasting friendship. The Terran Alliance didn't just leave after the war. They stayed. They helped rebuild cities and shared knowledge that had been locked away by politics and power. In return, the Karnathi offered wisdom older than most human nations, philosophy, art, and a sense of harmony that humanity had long forgotten. Soon, Terran and Karnathi scientists were working side by side. Engineers built incredible ships that combined human firepower with sleek, elegant Karnathi design. These became the first vessels of a new symbol of unity, the Alliance Fleet. The official founding ceremony took place inside the Grand Hall of Relka, a magnificent structure rebuilt with human steel and Karnathi crystal. Representatives from dozens of worlds watched as cameras broadcast the event across the galaxy. Admiral Marcus Ward stood at the podium, beside the now ancient but proud High Speaker Thalrin. Ward's voice echoed through the vast chamber. 20 years ago, my grandfather fell to this world broken and alone. The Karnathi saved his life without asking for anything in return. When they called for help, humanity answered. Today we stand not as saviors or debtors, but as equals. The crowd erupted in applause. Thalrin raised his staff, his voice trembling but strong. From this day our suns rise not for one world but for two. Together we are light against the dark. And with those words, the human Karnathi alliance was born. Over the next decade, peace spread like a sunrise. Trade routes flourished and new colonies were built under a joint flag of blue and silver, a star for humanity, and two suns for Karnath. Children of both races studied together. Mixed crews served aboard alliance ships. Soldiers who once knew only war now protected the weak and the lost. The galaxy began to see humans differently, not just as fierce warriors, but as loyal protectors. Other species watched with curiosity, then admiration. The phrase, "humanity remembers," became a saying among the stars, whispered in the halls of alien councils with respect, and sometimes with fear. Because everyone knew, if you harmed one who stood beside humanity, the Terrans would come. One morning, under a golden sky, High Speaker Thalrin passed away peacefully in his sleep. When the funeral was held, every city paused. Ships from Earth, Mars, and the colonies arrived to pay tribute. Admiral Marcus Ward, now older with gray in his hair, stood before the crowd. He was the first to believe that kindness could change the stars, Ward said softly. He believed in a promise made by a single human, and that belief saved us all. In orbit, the entire fleet dimmed their lights for 1 hour, a galaxy's moment of respect. 50 years passed. A new generation led the Alliance. Among them was Lyra Ward, great-granddaughter of the man who first fell from the sky. As the new admiral, her first journey wasn't to Earth, but to Karnath. There she stood before the great monument built in honor of her ancestor and Thalrin Wren. Two figures, one human, one Karnathi, reaching for the stars. An old Karnathi caretaker bowed to her. They said the promise of one man would echo forever, he said. Lyra smiled, her eyes shining in the light of the twin suns. It did, and it still does. Before leaving, Lyra ordered a massive beacon placed in orbit, a bright blue light pulsing with a simple message in both languages. To those who stand with humanity, humanity will always return, Travelers from far worlds would see that light and ask what it meant. And the Karnathi would answer proudly, "It is the memory of a promise, one human helped by us, and 1,000 who came to repay it." Centuries later, the story became legend. Bards sang of the promise of Karnath. Even as humanity spread to 1,000 stars, one truth endured. Kindness can echo across galaxies. Humanity remembers. Always. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this story, please consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel for more tales from across the stars. We'll see you in the next one. The Silence Beyond the Rim. The galaxy had known peace for almost a century. Trade ships crossed the stars without fear. The alliance of two suns, human and Karnathi, stood as a symbol of unity and strength. No empire dared challenge them. But peace is fragile. It only takes a whisper in the dark to shatter it. The first sign. It began at the edge of known space, near a mining colony called Vesper 9. The colony's final transmission was a single word: help. When rescue ships arrived, there was nothing left. No debris, no survivors, not even dust. It was as if the colony had been erased from existence. The investigation fleet found only one clue: a faint energy trace unlike any known weapon or technology. A ripple that made sensors flicker and warp, as though reality itself had been torn. Admiral Lyra Ward received the report aboard her flagship TAS Horizon. She stood before the holographic display, arms folded, her face calm but cold. "Any sign of raiders?" she asked. "None," her officer replied. "No life signatures, no transmissions, just silence." Lyra narrowed her eyes. "Silence can be louder than screams. Keep scanning." The empty ships. 2 weeks later, it happened again. A convoy of 10 ships vanished in transit between Earth and Karnath. Their navigation beacons blinked out one by one, as if swallowed by darkness. When the Horizon arrived at the last known coordinates, they found the ships drifting, intact, but empty. Every crew member was gone. Doors hung open. Meals sat half-eaten. Power systems still ran, but there was no one aboard. Commander Vial Tharn, Lyra's Karnathi second-in-command, moved cautiously through the corridors of one of the ghost ships. "It's like they walked into the air and disappeared," he said, his 4 eyes scanning the shadows. Lyra looked at the main display. No bodies, no fight, just gone. Whatever had taken them, it wasn't human. The Council debates. The Alliance High Council gathered on Karnath Prime. Leaders from both species filled the crystal chamber. Some argued for caution. "We cannot fight an enemy we cannot see," said Minister Ralm. Others demanded action. "If we wait, it will come for our worlds next," warned General Harlan. Lyra stood before them. "The unknown is not invincible," she said firmly. "We survived the wars. We survived the Dark Ages. We'll survive this. But we must act together." Her words reminded the Council of their shared history, the old promise, the fleet that once came when one call for help echoed through the stars. At last they agreed. A joint fleet would be sent beyond the rim, the border of known space, to find the source of the disappearances. Journey into darkness. The Horizon led the mission, 20 ships, human and Karnathi, flying under the Twin Suns insignia. Beyond the rim, space felt wrong. Stars shimmered and faded like dying embers. Time itself seemed to stretch and bend. Even the AI cores complained of distortion. Then they saw it. A massive pulsing shape drifting in the void. A sphere made of black crystal, absorbing all light around it. It was easily the size of a moon. As the fleet approached, energy readings spiked. The sphere opened, revealing endless corridors of shifting metal. Lyra stared, speechless. "It's not a ship," she whispered. "It's alive." The scanners translated faint transmissions, thousands of overlapping voices whispering in languages older than any known civilization. Vial's crest trembled. "Admiral, those aren't words. They're names. They're calling to us." The worst contact. Suddenly, the sphere moved. Beams of dark energy lashed out, striking 2 ships. They vanished instantly, No explosion, no light, just gone. Lyra shouted, "Evasive maneuvers, fire at will." Cannons blazed, missiles streaked. The sphere absorbed everything, then it answered. A single word echoed across every comm channel, in every tongue. Remember. For a moment, every sensor went dark. Crews screamed as ghostly images flickered across screens. Visions of long-dead worlds, destroyed fleets, and crying voices. Then the power returned. The sphere was gone. But so were 5 ships. The return to Karnath. The survivors limped back to Karnath. The council was horrified. The reports called the threat the Nullborn, beings that consumed energy, matter, and even memory itself. Lyra stood before the council once more. They erase existence. Every world they touch is forgotten, as if it never was. We must be ready. Some doubted. Some feared. But one thing was clear. The peace they had built for generations was about to be tested in fire. The old promise awakens. That night, Lyra walked through the halls of the memorial on Karnath. She stood beneath the statue of her ancestor, Elias Ward, and High Speaker Thalrin, the ones who began it all. She placed her hand on the stone, whispering, "They once helped a human, and we answered. Now we must answer again." Outside, in the deep of space, the stars flickered. Something was coming, and the alliance of 2 suns was about to learn that even the brightest light must sometimes face the deepest shadow. Epic cinematic music begins, swelling with a sense of vastness and impending conflict. For a century, the stars knew peace. But peace is a fragile thing. Alarms blared across the alliance of 2 suns, from the blue marble of Earth to the distant gleaming cities of Karnath Prime. The Nullborn were coming, an enemy that erased everything it touched. In shipyards across known space, giants of metal awoke. Carriers, cruisers, and dreadnoughts rose from their slumber, their hulls hungry for battle. At the center of it all stood Admiral Lyra Ward. Her voice, broadcast to every ship, was a blade of calm in a storm of fear. "The Nullborn erase everything they touch," she declared. "We will not let them erase us." Her words became a vow, carried by every soul in the Terran and Karnathi fleets. Music shifts, becoming more hopeful and grand. From the oceans of Earth to the golden clouds of Karnath, the call was answered. Thousands of ships, a tapestry of cultures and species, gathered in the heavens. Humans from forgotten colonies. Karnathi warriors with silver skin and eyes that glowed like embers. Over 2,000 warships assembled in orbit, the largest armada since the Alliance was born. The twin suns of Karnath painted their hulls in gold and fire, a breathtaking sight of unity and defiance. Standing on the bridge of the flagship, the TAS Horizon, Commander Vaeltharn whispered, "It is beautiful." Lyra Ward watched the magnificent fleet, her expression grim. "Yes," she replied. "And tomorrow, it will burn." The tone becomes tense, suspenseful. Scouts on the galactic rim sent their final frantic warnings. The Nullborn were a tide of black mirrors, drinking the light of stars as they advanced. Entire systems went dark, swallowed by the silence. In less than a month, they reached Varen's belt, just a few jumps from the heart of the Alliance. There was no more time. Lyra stood before the holotable, the incoming swarm a terrifying stain on the map. "They consume energy," she stated, "but not fast enough to stop us all. We will strike first. We hit them before they reach the twin suns." The orders were given. With a flash of displaced reality, the entire fleet leaped into the void. Music explodes into intense, action-packed symphony. They emerged into chaos, an ocean of shadow. The Nullborn Armada was featureless, silent, and utterly without mercy. They didn't communicate. They simply advanced. "Open fire!" Lyra commanded. The void erupted in a storm of plasma and missiles, but the energy weapons were absorbed, feeding the enemy. "Kinetic rounds," Vael shouted. "Bullets, not beams." Projectiles tore through the black hulls, but for every ship destroyed, 2 more took its place. The battle was a maelstrom of light and death. A Nullborn dreadship focused its power on the horizon, and space itself bent around them. "Shields down to 40%. an officer cried. Lyra didn't flinch. All power to forward batteries. Target their core. The Horizon's main cannon, a fusion of Terran and Carnathi tech, unleashed a beam of pure dawn. The enemy dreadship cracked, split, and vanished into light. For the first time, the enemy bled. Music softens to a somber, heroic melody. The battle raged for hours. Fleets were erased from existence. Heroes were made and lost in the same breath. Finally battered and broken, the remaining Alliance ships regrouped in the orbit of Carnath, the enemy closing in like a shroud. Lyra addressed her crew, her voice unwavering. They think they can erase us, but you cannot erase memory. You cannot erase a promise. She turned to Vale. Activate the Sunforge protocol. The Sunforge was a forbidden weapon, an ancient project that could channel the power of both suns into an unstoppable wave. Admiral, Vael protested, the blast will consume our own ships. Lyra's eyes held the weight of galaxies. I know. If we fall together. Humanity remembers. Carnath remembers. Her final order went out to the fleet. This is Admiral Ward. We make our stand here. Let them remember why humanity answers the call. The ships formed a final defiant circle. Power surged. The twin suns began to blaze with impossible brightness. As the enemy closed in, Lyra whispered, Sunforge, ignite. Music reaches a powerful, emotional crescendo, then fades into a gentle, reflective theme. Light, absolute and pure. The energy pulse expanded faster than thought, and every null-born ship disintegrated into harmless sparks. The horizon trembled and broke apart, but Lyra Ward stood tall, watching the light reclaim the darkness. When the glare faded, fragments of the Alliance fleet remained, drifting in the silent starlight. Thousands were lost. But the nullborn were gone. The battle had cost nearly everything, but it had saved all. And across the galaxy, worlds that had watched the broadcast whispered in awe of the species that, when called upon by a friend, answered with the fire of their own suns. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more tales from the stars. The silence after the war was heavier than the battle itself. Where once thousands of ships had filled the void, only a few hundred now drifted. Broken hulls turned slowly in the light of the twin suns, their metal bodies like grave markers against the stars. For the first time in 100 years, there was no enemy, only quiet and memory. Rescue ships arrived days later, finding survivors clinging to debris, their oxygen tanks half empty, their voices weak but alive. Among them were both Terrans and Carnathi, their differences long forgotten in the shared struggle for survival. The flagship, the mighty Horizon, was gone. Only fragments remained, scorched metal, a few data cores, and the shattered crest of the Terran Alliance. Admiral Lyra Ward was never found, but her final transmission echoed across every surviving ship, a final command that became a promise. If the light fades, we become the light. Those words spread faster than any signal. Across planets, colonies, and outposts, they became a mantra. Humanity hadn't just survived, they had protected everyone. A month later, the Alliance held a memorial in orbit of Carnath. Thousands of ships gathered, their running lights dimmed in silent respect. The ceremony was broadcast to every world. At its center floated two massive suns, now stable once more. Between them drifted a single monument of black stone and silver steel, inscribed with the names of the fallen. At the very top, one name stood alone. Admiral Lyra Ward. The light that answered. Commander Vael Tharn, now the acting fleet marshal, gave the eulogy. His voice, usually so steady, trembled as he spoke. She gave everything to keep a promise made generations ago. Her ancestor was once saved by an act of kindness. Today she repaid that kindness with her life. He bowed his head. The suns still burn because of her. And as long as they shine, her light will not fade. In response, Every ship fired a single brilliant beam into space, a salute that stretched for light years. The stars themselves seemed to bow. News of the battle spread far beyond the Alliance. Civilizations that had once feared humans now spoke their name with reverence. The message was translated into hundreds of languages, carried on every comm network. They once helped a human, and humanity answered. Entire systems pledged allegiance, inspired by the courage of those who stood at Karnath. Even old enemies sent messages of respect. In the farthest colonies, children played the Battle of the Two Suns, pretending to be Terran captains and Karnathi warriors, standing together against the dark. For them, Lyra Ward wasn't just a soldier, she was a legend. Years passed. Karnath rebuilt. Earth flourished. The Alliance grew larger and stronger than ever. Then one day, engineers at the edge of the system detected a faint, old distress beacon drifting in deep space. When they retrieved it, they realized it was from the horizon. It contained Lyra's final log entry, recorded moments before she activated the Sunforge. Her voice was calm, resolute. If this message reaches anyone, know this. We did not fight because we hated the dark. We fought because someone once reached out their hand to a broken man, and the galaxy never forgot. Protect each other. That is how the light survives. The recording ended with the deafening roar of the Sunforge's ignition. The file was archived in the Hall of Two Suns, a sacred testament preserved for eternity. 50 years later, the Alliance launched a new flagship. It was the largest vessel ever built, a shining marvel of crystal and titanium, powered by the harmonized energy of both suns. Its name, Tas Lyra's Promise. At its launch, the ship's captain, a young woman of mixed Terran and Karnathi heritage, stood before the crowd and spoke with pride. The promise began with one human. It lived on through his granddaughter. And now, it belongs to all of us. As the ship rose into the sky, its engines glowed with the blue and gold light of the Alliance. Centuries came and went. Empires rose and fell. New species joined the stars. But one thing never faded. The story of the promise of Karnath. It was taught in schools, sung in songs, whispered between traders and soldiers. Kindness can echo through time. Humanity remembers. And in the cold space between galaxies, two suns still burn side by side. Around them circles a single world, peaceful, united, and strong. At night, from its surface, you can still see a faint blue glow, the beacon of the horizon, still drifting, still shining. It's said that if you look closely, you can hear her words carried on the solar winds. If the light fades, we become the light. And somewhere, beyond the edge of known space, the stars themselves seem to whisper back, we remember. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey. If you enjoyed this story, please consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel for more tales from across the stars. See you next time. 1,000 years had passed since the Battle of the Two Suns. Empires had risen, burned, and turned to dust. But through it all, one name still echoed across the void. Humanity. They were gone now. No homeworld, no living descendants, only their creations and their stories. Yet, the foundation of the Galactic Concord, an interstellar civilization spanning thousands of worlds, was built upon their alliance with the Karnathi. Even after so long, the promise of Karnath still lived in every heart. Because the humans had taught the stars something no empire ever could. Kindness remembers. In the year 4025, explorers from the Concord found something at the edge of the void, a signal. Weak, ancient, but terrifyingly familiar. When scientists decoded it, they went pale. It was the same energy signature recorded before the First Nullborn War. The darkness was returning. Entire systems began to vanish again, just as they had a millennium ago. History was repeating itself, but this time there were no humans left to lead the fight. The conquered council gathered on Karnath Prime, beneath the twin suns that had once burned away the darkness. Admiral Seren Viel, a descendant of the Karnathi hero who fought beside the legendary Lyra Ward, stood before them. The Nullborn have awakened, she said gravely, "and the light of humanity is gone. We must fight without them." But deep inside, she couldn't accept that. The stories said the Terrans had left something more than just ships or weapons, something eternal. That night, she looked to the stars and whispered, "If the light fades, we become the light." She ordered her crew to the edge of known space, to search for the Lyra's Promise, the final human flagship that had vanished centuries ago. After months of searching, they found it. Drifting beyond the rim of the galaxy, frozen in silence, the TAS Lyra's Promise still floated among the dead stars. Its hull was ancient and scarred, yet its beacon still pulsed faintly, blue and gold. As Seren and her crew stepped onto the bridge, the ship's systems flickered to life. A hologram appeared, flickering, fragile, but unmistakably human. It was Admiral Lyra Ward. Her voice was soft but filled with strength. "If you are seeing this, it means the darkness has returned. But don't be afraid. You are not alone. Humanity never truly dies. We left our light behind, in you." Serene felt tears form in her eyes. "She knew," she whispered. The hologram continued. "This ship carries a fragment of the Sunforge, enough to light the stars once more. Use it. Remember who you are. Remember why we fought." Then the hologram smiled and faded away. The Concord activated the Sunforge core within the old human ship. It took months to repair, but finally it was ready. As the Nullborn fleets approached, the united forces of the Concord gathered once more around Karnath as twin suns, the same battlefield where humanity had made its stand. At their center floated the Lyra's Promise, her engines glowing for the first time in 1,000 years. Admiral Seren broadcast her message to the entire galaxy. Long ago, one world helped a fallen human. Humanity repaid that kindness with fire and light. Today we carry that same promise. For every star that falls, another will rise. We are their echo. We are humanity's promise. And with that, she gave the order. Ignite the Sunforge. The stars themselves seemed to hold their breath. The twin suns flared brighter, and a wave of pure golden light swept across space like a sunrise. The Nullborn disintegrated, their darkness stripped away. The galaxy burned not with destruction, but with remembrance. Centuries later, travelers still come to see the twin suns of Karnath. Between them floats a monument, carved with a single phrase in 1,000 languages. They once helped a human, and humanity answered. And children still point to a faint blue glow moving across the heavens, asking, "Who are they?" And their parents smile and say, "Those are the humans. They may be gone, but their promise still keeps the stars bright." Far beyond any world, an old beacon still drifts, blinking out a simple message. To those who stand with humanity, humanity will always return. And though no human lives to hear it, the stars themselves seem to answer back. We remember. Thank you for watching this journey through the stars. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more tales from across the galaxy. See you next time.